from people who disagree with us. So Harrison, if you want to unmute yourself and jump in, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I guess my whole thing is why does this meeting even matter? Like, what is the actual claim that's being made here? That's been my confusion the whole point,
Yeah.
the whole time is like, okay, let's say that there's absolute proof, photographic evidence that everything that Snow says is true. Like, who cares? I mean, what does that prove? What is the actual accusation? Who do you think was conspiring with who to do what?
Yeah.
And I think obviously the name of the episode was, the day before Charlie Kirk was murdered. The insinuation is that this was a assassination planning meeting,
Yeah.
which I don't even see any evidence of that. And then people I'm arguing with online are saying, no, this has nothing to do with the assassination.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess if the space is why this matters, why does Fort Huachuca even matter? Like, what is the claim being made? I still
Yeah.
don't even understand that.
So it matters because why would Brian Harpole be on Fort Huachuca at all? Right? It matters because he's giving an alibi, which means he doesn't want to be associated. Like, it could have easily not mattered. Kind of, to speak to your credit, he could have been like, "Yeah, I was at Fort Huachuca with my brother, and my brother's in the military. I was dropping off some food." Uh, okay, like that could have been then suddenly a dead end. That would have been nothing. Now, because Mitch had described this as a top secret meeting in an off-site building and had described this as top brass at the Pentagon and said that these sorts of meetings, and I am forgetting the military term, are when you're just about to embark on like a mission. I know I really uneducated, but military guys will sound better saying that. It was compelling. Like, okay, like I said, Brian Harpole was acting funny. He's been acting weird. He's been telling verifiable lies, and he cared enough to present an alibi, meaning he didn't want people to think he was there, right? So if you have to give someone an alibi, it's because you don't want people to think that you're there. An alibi is not needed if there's nothing to hide. So
Well,
that's why it matters. I think that's why it matters. And this reaction, rather than being forthcoming, is why it suddenly feels like, okay, this is important because no one's acting normal. No one's just like, oh yeah, cool, he was there. Like, it also is, as we have now learned, it's an intel base. He was telling the truth about exactly what building it was. I didn't name the building on my show because I wasn't sure if that would be like a national security problem, but it just happened to be that JTF was borrowing that offsite building, and it was supposed to be a top secret meeting for those purposes. Somebody that was involved in blacking out the windows had sent us a tip. Again, it's how people are reacting to the meeting that lets us know that it's important.
okay. I mean,
Now,
I guess.
regarding the hotel, I never said it was important. Like I said, my perspective was there's 1,000 different reasons that she could have been at that base. Her mother has a contract or had a contract, has a contract with the DoD. Erica has been open about her mother's ties to the military in the past. She actually did an interview and said that she moved to Arizona because her mother had a contract with the military. So again, weird thing is when Andrew's like, Erica wasn't in some fort, as if he's never heard of Fort Huachuca. His brother is in the military. His brother is Captain Curtis Colvett. His first cousin is Captain Robert Colvett. So that kind of a language is why I've named this, why it suddenly really matters, right? It was sort of one episode. I didn't exactly dedicate a whole series to it. The reaction has been so almost like violently obsessed that the public is now going, oh, okay, well, it feels like there's something here. I think that's just sort of our natural instinct.
Okay. I mean, I think if you're saying that somebody is somewhere and they weren't there, then providing the alibi is not in and of itself suspicious. If the alibi is not confirmed, I guess you can be suspicious of that. But again, I still there's still not an answer. Like, okay, let's just say you're right. Let's just say that absolutely they were there.
Yeah.
What does that prove? What is the accusation? Because what it sounds like, and I mean, what the insinuation obviously is that this was a planning meeting for the assassination, and the people there had pre-knowledge of the assassination and were therefore in on it. So I think that if you are making that accusation, which in effect you are, right? You're in effect saying, okay, Erica Kirk and the head of TPUSA security were at this pre-assassination
I didn't
planning
say Erica
meeting.
was there. So you guys have to stop repeating that. It's Erica was never at that meeting. And that's another thing. I've never said Erica was at the meeting. Mitch has never said Erica was at that meeting. There was never an indication she was at that meeting. He did not see her on September 9th. It was Brian Harpole who was at that meeting. To my knowledge, Brian Harpole, I don't know why he would be at an intel base at a meeting with top brass. And what I can tell you is if he was there, Turning Point doesn't know he was there. According to Erica and Justin Strife, who I sat down for 4.5 hours. So if Turning Point has him on their payroll, and they've outright purchased a security firm and they don't know what he's doing on an intel base, yeah, it matters. And we don't need to know the conclusion to follow the clues here that something's wrong. So that there's this fashionable thing where people are always like, well, what's the final thing you're saying? Well, we don't know the final thing that we're saying because that's not how an investigation works.
Well,
Like, we
you
have to
can,
follow the thing that's the lie. We have to follow, okay, this guy said he was here, he wasn't. What does that mean? I don't know what it means yet. I don't know what it means yet. What I'm saying is the reaction to this is not normal. Brian Harpole shouldn't be on an intel base if Turning Point doesn't know about it. And he's presented an alibi that doesn't actually cover where he was, but he felt it necessary to give an alibi. So, I don't know, interesting. And I think we have a right to think. So, if
okay.
that's
So
cool, I'm just gonna let somebody else jump in right here. Just, I think, is that okay, Harrison? Or do you want to just have a final thought there before?
sure. Okay. So Erica Kirk was not there. You don't believe that Erica Kirk was there at all.
She wasn't there
So
on the 9th. She was not seen on the 9th. It's not about whether I believe she was there. She wasn't seen on the 9th. That was never said. He never said it. I never said it.
okay, but
Yeah.
she was seen on the 8th.
Yes. And not
Okay.
at the Intel meeting, not in the Intel, headquarters or whatever building they were using. She was not seen with the top brass, nothing like that.
Okay.
So
So the pre-assassination planning meeting happened on the morning of the 9th. She was seen in the area on the afternoon of the 8th, but those were unrelated. She just happened to be
they are
there.
related because of the person she was with, who he
Uh-huh.
believes looks like Cabot Phillips. He did see that person at the meeting on the 9th.
Okay. So you are saying that basically these people were there to conspire to kill Charlie Kirk, right? I
You
mean,
can keep saying what you're saying, or you can listen to what I'm saying. But if you want to just say what you're saying, just say it and don't put it behind you're saying. Just say, hey, I'm Harrison and I'm saying, right? That's easier, I think. Well, so what did you
okay.
say?
Hi, I'm Harrison. What I'm saying is
Okay.
that in 2 months, nobody is going to remember the name Mitch Snow or Fort Huachuca, and this is not going to go anywhere, and that this is a nothing burger. I just think it's an absolute nothing burger that's not going to lead anywhere. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. You can prove me wrong, but again, my whole thing has always been that this devolves into this question of like, was he there? Was he not there? And the whole time I'm just going, what does it matter? If the conclusion is that he's a complete liar, it's the exact same outcome as proving that these people were actually there, because so far you haven't connected it to the assassination in any way whatsoever, except that maybe this guy thinks that he saw people that are around Charlie Kirk. And my whole point is, obviously the insinuation is, I mean, again, when you're saying Erica Kirk was there, but not actually there on the day, but in the area, but not because of the assassination meeting, but it's like, okay, clearly the insinuation is that these people had something to do with the assassination, and you can make that claim or not, or pretend that you are, or pretend that you're not, but you obviously are. But like, that's all. I don't really care about
Okay.
any of that.
Thanks,
But
Harrison.
you have to.
Thank you. Let's give somebody. I think
Okay.
just because you say something clearly and obviously and clearly doesn't make it clear or obvious.
Okay.
I'm following this investigation. Charlie was assassinated. I'm going to take every step and I'm going to say what I know at the exact time that I know it. So I cannot say that it was definitively an assassination meeting. I can say that I have a feeling about this meeting that if it is in fact Brian Harpole there and he's lying about that, then that's not good. It's not a good thing because there's no reason to lie unless you have something to hide. But thank you so much for your feedback. I appreciate that and hope to speak in the future.
I've learned is his name. Harrison Smith, journalist at InfoWars, citizen journalist at InfoWars, 8th generation Texan, if his ex account is to be believed. He asks, why does this matter? Why are we even talking about this? She was polite. I almost got my bad cop hat out and put it on. Harrison, I hope you're listening. And if you're not, I hope someone sends this to you. Here's why it matters. A national treasure was neutralized in broad daylight. We don't know how it happened, but we know the story we've been given is not true. Because we've been told he was shot in the neck with a 30-06. That's impossible. That hasn't happened. We know for sure that hasn't happened. And so it raises the issue. How did he die? How did he die? If he wasn't shot in the neck with a 30-06 and there's no allegation that any other gun was involved, how did he pass away? What happened? How did he get killed? It's in the context of that a rando comes along and says, wait a minute. I was at an intelligence base the day before Charlie Kirk got killed. This is the Mitch Snow story. I was at an intelligence base the day before, and you'll never guess what I saw. I saw a guy who looks just like Brian Harpole coming out of a meeting with a bunch of lieutenant colonels and higher. It's unbelievable. You should have seen the collection of brass in this meeting. It was top notch. It looked like the Pentagon was meeting live in Arizona. Well, you got to start to establish a few things. And so Candace, before bringing this to our attention, before talking to anybody about it, she looked in and said, well, prove you were even there. Prove you were even there. So she does. And he sends pictures. He sends videos. He gives her receipts. And he establishes a fairly credible story about having been there. He gives her details. Now keep in mind, the details he gave her, he did not back up at the time, such as the police were called. Like he didn't provide, I don't think, a police report at that time. But he said the police were called. And that's important. I'll come back to that in a second. But he identifies, I was in this building over here. I stayed at this hotel right here. Here's my receipt. And he puts forth enough information that at least it becomes credible that he was there. Now, Harrison, I want to ask you as an InfoWars reporter. Let's say you had information from Butler, Pennsylvania. June or was it July of 2024 when Donald Trump was buzzed in the ear? You had information from Butler, Pennsylvania. A random guy calls you and he says, Harrison, I've got a lead. I don't know if there's anything to this or not. But the night before I was at, I was in Butler, Pennsylvania, the night before Donald Trump was taken down. And I know there was this high-level meeting, and it was full of top brass. They were all meeting at this building just off of Butler, Pennsylvania, just off of there. There was this building, and it had all these government cars there. And I swear I saw someone close to the press. I saw J.D. Vance coming out of that meeting. Well, that's, you know, considering J.D. Vance was then named the vice president like a week later, or the vice presidential candidate like a week later, that would be relevant, right? And so you you might say, well, prove you were there. Show me you were there. Do you have receipts? Do you have video? Do you have audio? Do you have photography? And he sends you all this stuff, and he proves he was there, and he's making this claim. And in addition to J.D. Vance, he says, you know, I saw somebody else there. I saw, I don't know. It's hard because he's the president, so it's hard to make this comparison. But I saw members of his Secret Service staff. I didn't even know they were members of his Secret Service staff. But then when I saw that he was shot the next day, and I saw who picked him up, I saw that guy that picked him up, and he was at that meeting too. So it was him, and it was another one of the friends. And so if you, Harrison, get this call, are you going to say, no, I don't think I'm going to run with this because you can't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? If this went to court, there's not enough right now to convict any of these people. So I'm just going to sit back and not look into this at all. I'm not going to investigate it. I'm not going to mention it on air. I'm not going to call any of these people. I'm just going to ignore it and act like you never called me. Harrison, if the answer to that question is yes, if you say that's what you would have done, you're a liar. You're absolutely lying. You're absolutely lying. That's not what you would have done. And I go one step further. If you would have been the one to get this call, Harrison, if you would have been the one to get this call on this story right here, on the Charlie Kirk story, you would have brought it to the public's attention. I guarantee you would have. I guarantee you would have. And so what did you want Candace to do? Prove the guy was where he said he was? She did. And it's subsequently come out that he actually was there. His son confirmed. The police called him because he was on the fort on that morning. And so that's a piece of confirmation that Candace Owens didn't even have at the time, Harrison. So, like, even beyond what she was able to prove, they've gone on to prove. And so it is impossible for me, Harrison, to believe for half a second you would have sat on this story, not looked into it, not dug into it at all. Or if you did dig into it, you would have come across some aggrieved ex-wife or ex-girlfriend or some estranged son and said, well, I'm telling you what, this guy, he did some bad things 19 years ago. I'm probably going to ignore everything he said. I'm probably going to assume he didn't see anybody. Because if he did that 19 years ago, you can only imagine he was lying. He's never told a truthful sentence about anyone or anything at any time ever since. So don't give me this BS about, I don't even understand why this is a story. I don't even understand why this is a story. It's a story, Harrison, and everybody, and Alex and Evan and everybody who's pushing back, Gary, Nate, no offense, Nate. It's a story because the guy identified specific people on Charlie Kirk's team. And we were later able to confirm that the rest of his story about being there adds up. He was able to prove he was there. He was at the building he claimed he went to. All of that adds up. And so you're left with a story that you're saying he told the truth about absolutely every part of it except two facts: seeing Brian Harpole and seeing Erica Kirk. Other than that, everything he said is true. Nonsense. It's a nonsensical position. Guys, that's why I opened this show the way I did. You people who are wanting to kill this story are just upset that you can't. You're upset that this story is getting away from you. And that's the fact. That's the reality. You're ready to move on. You've been activated. You are been told, get this story out of the way. Be done with this story. That's just a fact. That has to be the reality here. I'll blanket it with saying it's my opinion just for legal purposes, but that has to be the reality here. Because it is impossible for me to believe that you, Harrison, you, Alex, you, Evan, you, Morgan, you, any of you people are sitting there thinking, you know, this guy told the truth about everything. He told the truth about the building he was in. He told the truth about the police being there. He told the truth about where he stayed. He told the truth. He told the truth about every aspect of this story. But by goodness, when he looks and he says, I think I saw Brian Harpole, surely he was lying. So that's number one. That's the number one part. And I thought Candace, I'm going to play her answer in a second. I thought her answer was good, but I think she was trying to be friendly. I'm not. It is absolute BS if a single one of you people questioning the Mitch Snow story would have sat on it and buried it, all because you knew he had a domestic violence allegation 20 years ago. If you say that, you're lying. You are absolutely lying. You're not telling the truth. The truth is not in you. You sit on a throne of lies, to quote Elf. It is the season, after all. That's why it's important.
Like, here we are all citizen journalists. Every single person on this stage right now describes themselves as a journalist in some way, shape, or form, right? There's no curiosity, right? Like, when did we say, well, here's a good example. Harrison, you posted 2 weeks before Charlie Kirk died that there was a credible threat against his life. Has the FBI reached out to you to ask you about that?
No.
Also,
No.
like, are you going to tell us who that was? It feels like that might be relevant now.
Yeah. So in the absence of a rigorous investigation by the agency, we are led to lead this investigation. That is why Fort Huachuca is so relevant. But I was going to ask you, thank you, Candace. Can you tell us who told you that? Because
He's
the
dead now.
FBI is not asking you.
Yeah, I mean, the person that told me asked me not to say who they were, so I'm not going to give up a source. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Well, then, in the absence of answers and a rigorous investigation, we are led to do that ourselves. So every credible piece of evidence that we have to follow, every trail should be exhausted before we say, oh, well, this ain't worth it. And I have seen far more energy put into discrediting this Fort Huachuca witness than I have for people actually looking into the claim itself. Like Candace said earlier, she actually called people at the base to verify whether or not the events occurred. Was he there at that time? Where did it happen at, etc. But I see all of these people. It's almost like it's coordinated,
Yeah.
right? All of these people on the same 2 days come out and say, oh, don't listen to this guy. They apply labels. Do you know why we apply labels to people? That way you stop listening to them. Oh, what he says doesn't matter anymore because he's an abuser, because he's
Right.
a fraud, because he's this, because he's that, right?
Yeah.
Far more effort into discrediting that witness than there has actually been into validating the information that he's been given.
By the way, the
That
best way to discredit him is to debunk his story. Like, it's like, so I'm like, why don't you focus on this? You can act. Do you hate Mitch? Do you hate who he is as a human being? Do you believe he's a pathological liar? How about proving that something that he told us was a pathological lie? Like, doesn't that just make sense? Like,
Zero convictions. All of the
yeah,
people saying that he was a fraudster, that he was an abuser, whatever. I couldn't find one criminal
yeah.
record
There was
of
no
him being
convictions.
convicted.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
too,
I
right?
couldn't find it either. They were showing no convictions. It was he said, she said. I mean, just like full character assassination.
A
And like,
one-sided divorce court that
yeah,
he didn't get to tell his piece in. Isn't
it
that
was very Me
interesting?
Too. It was very Me Too. I'm sorry to say it. And like when grown men are doing the Me Too shit, I just have no energy for it. I'm just like, all right, guys, like, cool, thumbs up. Like, I'm glad you found like his classmates in middle school or whatever. But like, could you use some of that male energy towards actually, like, if you think he's all of these things, the best thing to do would be like help us prove that he's lying on the thing that we care about, which is the Charlie Kirk assassination, you know? And no one has thus far done that. And he has not changed his story. So I am inclined to follow this, especially because we now know that Erica and Andrew Colvett and Brian Harpole do care enough to offer up, um, some parsed alibis of sorts.
But they didn't refute being there. I think, is a very important point. Not one of the people, including Congressman Amidei, with his statement, actually directly said, "I was not in Arizona or at Fort Huachuca at this time on this day." Not a single one of them have denied it.
Yeah, and I did. I don't know if you were on earlier when I said that, like, when Mitch first contacted me, he never said Mark Amidei. He gave a description of the man, and he said it was a congressman. And then I gave him, faces, and he was like, "This looks like the guy, like Mark Amidei." I think Mark Amidei is the only one that at least attempted to give an actual time frame that was relevant, and he gave the footage. And I do think it kind of looks like him. It's not definitive, but like it does kind of look like him. That's sitting in the chair when someone gave me the time point. So I do want to be at least like he gave us something. You know what I mean? But regarding the two people that he contacted me about, Brian Harpole and Erica, I find it strange that they went behind the scenes when they had a direct communication with me. Like, if you care enough, why wouldn't you just text me and I could shut it down immediately?
Everything else he said about that day, about the meeting and everything. If it's true, the consequences are so overwhelmingly deadly that they must be tracked down. If Brian Harpole was there, we must know who he was meeting with and why he was there. If Erica Kirk or Cabot Phillips was there, and I'm not saying any of these people were there, but if they were there, we must know why they were there. If there was a sitting congressman there, we need to know why. We must know why. That's why it's important. That's why it's important, Harris.